Hi, I'm Remi Crespo. I am a Puerto Rican game developer and designer. I reside here in Orlando, Florida. I've worked in the game industry for around a decade or so at this point. I've worked both in AAA and independent. And currently, I teach full time at Full Sail University. I teach in the game design degree, specifically my level design classes. And I co-operate a small business called Broad Strokes, where I am the creative director working on a project called Floppy and the Sleepy Planet. Floppy actually came from a game jam. I had recently just had a business that I had to unfortunately close because my business partners became fathers at the time. So I was a little bit of a weird slump where I wasn't quite sure what the next steps in my life were going to be. And I had a formal contractor who was a friend who suggested, hey, why don't we do a game jam together? And so me and two other people did this game jam and we won. And from the game jam, the whole theme was spring to the future. So I came up with this idea that it's springtime because it was like around Easter, and the future, why not make it a robot? And spring, what springs around? Well, like a spring is like something that jumps. So why not a rabbit? So we made a robotic rabbit for Easter time. And that's kind of where Floppy was born from. It came from a very simple idea of spring to the future. And then from there, it's just snowballed into such a grand magnum opus type of a project. Myself and various people I've worked with professionally in the game industry all kind of worked in moonlight together. And we started actively working on this project and evolving it from a game jam to like a theme that we kind of talked about into a real business. And we started a new business, which I partnered with a guy named Jan, and we started this company called Broad Strokes. And as time went on, we evolved into a team of people who are both actively in the industry and people who are up and coming. And we've been developing this for a couple of years now. And we actually all work in moonlight because we are doing this out of our own pockets, unfortunately. Still trying to build this into a full-time business. But we're like around a team of like 10 to 12 of us active at a time. But we're actually a full team of around 22 people. And we range from artists to designers to programmers to audio. We're a full development team. And these are all people that I know personally that I've worked with for the last decade and a half in the game industry. And we have to make life a little bit easier. We manage our studio very similar to like a real studio, where each department is broken up into a lead and the people below them. So for example, we have our concept art lead, who's also our art director, Melanie, who has the concept artist below her, and she manages that team. We also have our design lead, Anthony Lauder, who works with the level designers and game designers. Our programming lead, Justin Murphy, works with the programmers and all of our gameplay systems. And very much like how the world is right now with COVID, we are not only a remote team, but we're an international team. Many of us actually live all around the United States and all around the world. We have people who work in Canada who work with us, and many of which are actually people like us, Latinos and Latinas that work in various Latin American countries. In fact, my other business partner, Jose, is a Puerto Rican, very much like me. And our former art director, Henry, also being a Puerto Rican. But our animators, both Miriam and Alexis, hail from Mexico, specifically Mexico City. So we are a homunculi of LatinX people and game developers, all kind of just coming together on this project. So it's been a really weird dream I've been selling to people, but people really like this bunny. So trying to make sure that this thing happens. So when I was younger, Sonic was like one of my absolute favorite games to play. I played my Sega Genesis nonstop. I had a Nintendo, but I was still very young at the time. And then I had a Sega Genesis. I was at that age where I was able to fully understand what I was doing and what the game was. And growing up being Latino, like in an area with non-Latinos, you feel a little bit like an outsider. And I grew up in an area that were very nice people, but they weren't really people that I connected with. And I also was the same way in the school I went to, as well as the fact that I had a lot of illness when I was younger. I had a lot of allergies and things that prevented me from really running or doing a lot of sports when I was younger. So I really sleep and breathe video games when I was young. And I remember playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog 3 were the ones that really, something clicked in my brain. And I remember beating the game and feeling like I accomplished that. Like that was me who did that. And it gave me this feeling that I was much bigger than who I was at the time. And it was this feeling of immersion, and it was this feeling of feeling more grand than the situation I was currently in. And it was such an invigorating, almost emotional, spiritual feeling that I got from just such a simple thing. And it sounds silly to some people when I say that as an adult, but that feeling was something that I recognized very early. Like I actually knew what I wanted to do since kindergarten. As silly as it may sound, I knew from kindergarten I want to recreate this feeling. And as I got older, I started realizing that this feeling of game development and this immersion and the sense of building this world and these believable characters is a very Walt Disney way of thinking of things. And I realized that it was a very Disney mythology that I fell in love with. And Sonic 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, that whole journey of Sonic being Dr. Eggman, Robotnik, whatever you want to call him at the time, and saving Angel Island. That's what got me so into game development that I started. I remember I designed my first game design document when I was like 7, and I drew like different Sonic the Hedgehog acts and zones, and I drew up maps and I drew out levels, and my parents realized early like this is something he wants to do, so they taught me computers very early. So I was one of the few people back in the 80s and 90s that had a computer when they were really new at the time. And well, here I am, like 36, still glued to my computer, still making games, and wanting to make sure that the things I create are these feelings that I grew up experiencing as a child. So I'm very much, my origin story is I'm trying to recreate those feelings for the next generation of young developers, young gamers, that they feel that sense of they exist in this world. They did that thing and they made a difference. That they were able to accomplish something really big, even though they're small. Small body, big emotion. So that's kind of my sappy, inspirational reason why I became a game developer, and I still stand by it. It's weird because around the corner from me was the only other Spanish family I grew up with, because I grew up primarily like in a Black, Haitian, Jamaican neighborhood. So like we're all islanders, but we weren't Latino islanders. We were the opposite. So the kids, how it is. It's like kids were kids. So the only family I grew up with was the one around the corner that were Spanish, and they had everything opposite of what I had. So I had a Sega Genesis, they had a Super Nintendo. So I got introduced to RPGs and all that through them. And on my side, I had like all the action adventure games and all that. So I got like to experience kind of both worlds, but I don't know, Sega Genesis games kind of, they were a personal thing. They were part of my childhood, and they were a thing that like really, it made me want to do this professionally for the rest of my life. So it's a weird thing to tell people when you're like 36, but it's the honest truth. It's just that feeling that I want to recreate it. So it's the Walt Disney feeling. I want to just create something big and let people experience it when I'm gone. But from all of my business practices and working professionally, not only in games, but outside of games, the biggest thing I learned was transmedia. That was the thing I never understood. And a lot of game developers don't understand that, especially indies. And something I tell people privately, like you have to develop with the idea of transmedia. And in a short way of thinking of it, what can you do with the game once the game is done? Like, can you take that character and put it in another game? That's easy, yes. Can you put that character as a sidekick for another character? Can you put that character as a figurine on your desk? Can you make that character a comic book? Can you make that character a cartoon? Did you have that foresight ahead of time? What if you want to make a toy? Is the character designed in a way that's toy-like? And those were all things that like early me and my really good friend Henry, my former art director, we designed it to be very toy-like. That's the reason why Floppy has all those joints the way he does, because I fabricate in my spare time and I 3D print things. So I've made a full articulated Floppy that moves. Like I've proven to people like, hey, you want to make toys? I 3D printed this, and I am not a toy maker, and I was able to do this. This was designed with this in mind. And I've already designed this that it's very cartoon-like very anime and Saturday morning inspired. So we've already designed it in a way that these characters can go on small adventures in like the form of like golden storybooks, which is why like on our Patreon, if you go to it, you'll see those golden storybook pages, because that was something that we wanted to do as promotional originally. We wanted to give away like golden storybooks that told the story before you played the game. And if you bought those, if we ever got to that point, you can scan in the codes on it and get like additional little costumes for the character, because Mario style, dress up the character. It's fun to dress up the character. So I designed everything with the idea that it's not just a character, it was a universe. And it's very ambitious because again, I'm not a Kojima. I can't just say I'm gonna make a baby in a pod and people give me money. I'm Remi. Who the hell is Remi? Oh, I worked on the Connects. I worked on Feroza, and they're like, doing what? I'm like, oh, I was a junior and I was a senior, and they're like, yeah, but you weren't a director. So it's that battle, that's the behind the scenes battle that's not spoken about in games, that's very difficult to overcome. And unless if you had like that lightning in the bottle thing, it's very difficult to overcome it. So I'm hoping this time that everything that I've been building towards isn't just like, you know, wasted effort. I'm hoping everything I've been building shows like there's more than just a game. There is way more possibilities that can be bled into different directions, and each one has a plan. So there's a couple of major things that we're trying to do right now. So our biggest thing right now is that we are trying to get full investment so we can all work on this full time. Our goal is that we want to open a small studio here in Orlando, Florida, and hire a lot of local developers and a lot from the different schools here as well, and be a new East Coast small game development studio. We also want to develop past this game. We already have the next game that we want to make after Floppy. And our goal is that we always want to make one very large and ambitious project, sorry. And then we want to make one smaller and fun project in between that. And we hope for the next couple of years, we can make projects that always have the same standard of being both fun, family friendly, bright and colorful, and just have these fun characters that you want to play with. Definitely some early advice for anyone that wants to get into game development. The biggest one I'm going to say for everyone is always stay ambitious. It's very easy to get deterred from feeling like you're not good enough or maybe you're not doing the right thing. Don't let failure stop you. Learn from it. Learn to learn is another one. A lot of people will go to school with the idea that they're going to just get a job because they went to school. But you have to learn how to learn to get a job in the game industry because the game industry changes every day. So a big part of that is networking. You may go to school or you may go to events and do this independent, but the biggest network of getting into the game industry is meeting the right people, and they tell you like, hey, I worked with this person or I recommend this person to go ahead and work with you. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. We're an industry of people who make video games and art and animation. We're all nerds. We all love anime. We all love cartoons. We all love comic books. We all love movies. Don't feel like you're going to go into a room of people and have imposter syndrome. We all feel it. And this is a big one for any of you from the LatinX community that are watching me, especially me speaking English for a mostly Spanish event. I'm a Puerto Rican, and I sometimes don't identify myself as being the most Spanish person in the room because my Spanish is very bad. I didn't grow up a lot of Latinos in my life as far as like my growing up situation, but I didn't want that to deter me or make me feel like I wasn't part of my own culture. So for any of you that may be in areas that you don't have a lot of Spanish people, or maybe go into this profession and realize that there's not a lot of minorities in this profession where you may live, don't feel deterred. There are communities such as LatinX that you can be a part of both online with Facebook and Instagram and everything else in between. And you can reach out to these people and they're going to communicate with you. They're going to talk with you. Discord is a great way to stay in touch with people and start early and start showing people that you're ambitious. You never know when the right person's going to look at your work and give you a chance to move forward. That's what happened to me, and that's what happened with many of my friends. And I'm telling you, if someone's worked in the industry for well over a decade and a half, it can happen to you too.